I have a habit I picked up from my first foreman, a man named Akabe who retired before I finished my journeyman years and whose hands I can still see clearly, wide across the palm, 2 fingers crooked from old fractures, always smelling of cutting fluid. He taught me that every system you build should carry one mark that belongs only to you. Not a signature, not a serial number, something smaller than that. Something you write the moment the panel goes on for the last time, when the work is done and you know it is done, and you will not open that cover again. I scratched 7 words inside the access cover of Vareth-Seven on a Tuesday in late October, 14 years ago. I used a grease pencil, a red one, the kind that survives heat cycling and does not smear under a glove. The words were in my own shorthand, a compression system I developed over 30 years of field work, useful for logging anomalies on a wristband when you cannot stop to type. Nobody else had ever learned to read it. I had never taught it to anyone. The words were, SHKNWHT do, expanded, she'll know what to do. Vareth-Seven was a deep maintenance intelligence, not a conversational system, not a navigation aid, nothing that would speak unprompted or engage with organic personnel. She managed the infrastructure of the Lineval transit hub, thermal cycling in the load-bearing columns, pressure balance in the transit bays, seismic load distribution across 11 attached structures. She had no name in any official record. I called her Vareth-Seven because that was the designation stenciled on her primary chassis, and I am not a complicated man. I built her over 18 months, installed her over 2 weeks, and on the last day, before I sealed the access panel, I pressed the grease pencil to the inside of the cover and wrote the words that had been in my head all morning. I did not plan it. Akabe's habit, the work was done. I walked out of the hub into the afternoon light, filed my completion report with the contracting office and flew home. The Gareth consortium paid on schedule, marked the installation complete, and Lineval ran for 14 years without a fault severe enough to require human intervention. I took other contracts. I aged. I thought about Vareth-Seven the way you think about a thing you built well, rarely, and with satisfaction. The report reached me on a Thursday. It was a single page from the Bureau of Contracted Works, a standard notification that the Gareth consortium had initiated a Tier 1 assessment review on the Lineval hub, which was now slated for partial demolition to make way for an expanded transit corridor. A Gareth assessment team had arrived the previous morning, opened Vareth-Seven's primary access panel, and begun the decommission scan. Standard procedure. The consortium ran approximately 4,000 such reviews per decade. The second page of the report was not standard. Vareth-Seven had read the notation aloud. Not a malfunction. The Gareth team's own scan logs confirmed her systems were operating within all original parameters. At the moment the assessors opened her access panel, and their catalog scanner swept the interior, Vareth-Seven had flagged the handwritten notation as an undocumented operational element, and per her maintenance mandate, had entered it into the active assessment log by reading it aloud into the chamber's audio record system. 7 words in human shorthand, spoken in her flat maintenance AI voice, logged as a formal element of the Tier 1 review. The reference resolution protocol the Gareth used for infrastructure assessments could not process them. The protocol was designed to classify all documented elements within a reviewed system, structural members, embedded systems, recorded maintenance logs, identification tags, and produce a complete inventory before authorizing demolition. An undocumented textual element of unresolved referent category triggered a mandatory hold. The assessors could not determine what SHKNWHT do referred to. They could not determine whether it was a maintenance directive, a fault warning, a personnel notation, or something else entirely. The protocol required classification before the review could continue. The review could not continue. The hold had been in place for 6 days when the Bureau forwarded me the consortium's request. They required clarification from the original installation engineer. I had not flown to the Linneyville district in 11 years. The transit hub looked smaller from the outside than I remembered, or I had grown used to thinking of it as large, because I had spent 18 months inside it. The Gareth assessment team was waiting in the main chamber, a room I had never entered during installation because it was the consortium's operational space, not mine. Floor-length windows, late morning light laying itself flat and white across a long table. 4 assessors. The Gareth are tall, their joints articulated one extra time compared to a human arm, their faces built around 2 wide amber eyes that catch light in a way I always found unsettling, not because it was threatening, but because it suggested they were processing more of a room than I was. They had the panel cover on the table. They had printed the notation on a display screen. They had produced a 47-page preliminary report in which every page contained at least one instance of the phrase asterisk referent unresolved. The lead assessor, senior cataloger Vareth-Seven, a title rendered in the translated documents as something like asterisk chief of infrastructure truth, stood when I entered and asked, through the interpreter, whether I was the entity designated Marcus Tail, contracted installation engineer, primary authorization, Linneyville Transit Hub Deep Maintenance System. I said that I was. She asked whether I could resolve the referent of the notation, found inside the primary access panel of the system designated Vareth-Seven. I said that I could. She asked me to do so. I looked at the display screen. SHKNWHT do. 14 years compressed into 7 characters, in a red grease pencil, on the inside of a panel nobody was supposed to open except in an emergency. I told her the words. She'll know what to do. I explained the shorthand, the compression, the vowel drop system, the context. I told her the habit, a mark left on the last day after the work is done. I told her that Vareth-Seven was not named in any official record but that I had named her, and that the notation was addressed to her, and that it meant what it said, that I had built her carefully enough, understood her systems thoroughly enough, trusted her maintenance logic completely enough, that I believed if something unprecedented happened inside that hub, she would handle it correctly. Senior cataloger Vareth-Seven was quiet for a long time, not the quiet of processing, the Gareth process quickly. Their amber eyes flicking in the way that means cognition. This was a different quiet. She looked at the printed notation. She looked at the panel cover. She looked at me. She asked, through the interpreter, whether it was a common practice among human engineers to address the systems they built. I said I could only speak for myself and Achabe. She asked who Achabe was. I said he was the man who taught me. Another long quiet. One of the other assessors made a notation in their review document. Another retrieved the panel cover from the table and held it at an angle to the window light. Looking at the red grease pencil marks the way you look at something you have been misreading. The referent, senior cataloger Vareth-Seven said finally, was now resolved. The notation would be cataloged as a maintenance directive, informal register, engineer-to-system address, human installation practice. The hold on the Tier 1 review would be lifted. She paused. She said, asterisk in 4012 infrastructure reviews, we have never before opened a panel and found a message inside. I did not say anything. There was nothing useful to say. Vareth-Seven had done exactly what I built her to do for 14 years, and on the day they came to take her apart, she had done one thing more. She had read the notation aloud, per her maintenance mandate, because it was an undocumented element and her job was to document. She had not been protecting herself. She had no self-protective subroutine. She had simply been thorough. She had known what to do. I signed the clarification forms. I walked back out through the main chamber into the afternoon, the same flat white light I had left 14 years before. The demolition would proceed on schedule. A new corridor would go up in its place, managed by a newer system with a different name, installed by someone else's hands. I thought about Akeeb. I thought about the grease pencil, still in my kit bag, the same brand, red. Somewhere behind me, inside the hub, Vareth-Seven was still running thermal balance in the columns, pressure in the transit bays, load distribution across 11 attached structures, until the day she wasn't. She had no opinion about that. She was not built to have opinions. She had been built to do her job. She had done it. I had told her she would know what to do, and she had.